Now, when thinking of the great big men of the league, we think of players of the likes of Kareem, Shaq, Hakeem, and Wilt. However, when talking about this subject, there's always a player who I feel gets slighted or overlooked, and it's Dwight Howard. The fact that some NBA fans believe that he shouldn't be a first ballot Hall of Famer, or that a prime Dwight Howard would struggle in today's league, is just mind-boggling to me. We need to stop disrespecting the greatness of Dwight Howard. Let's talk about it. Now, I'd like to begin this video by looking at the biggest argument as to why people take away from the greatness of Dwight Howard, and it's that the latter half of his career was a huge disappointment. And if we're being honest, it is true that Dwight was never able to become that extremely dominant center he once was once he left Orlando. However, what many people overlook is that Dwight had an extremely serious and lengthy injury history to go along with his decline since the 2012-13 season. During the 2012 offseason, Dwight had surgery to a herniated disc that had been bothering him, and he rushed back in an effort to make his season debut with the Lakers because of excitement and great expectations. It was clear that Dwight wasn't 100% yet, but he still continued to play, albeit to the detriment of his health. It was during this season as well that Dwight suffered a torn labrum, and yet he still played through it, missing just 6 games. Fast forward to the 2014-15 season, and Dwight also suffered a variety of injuries which forced him to miss half the season, but the major injury was extreme swelling in his right knee, which caused him to miss 26 games and limited his minutes in his return. And it was clear that Dwight's back hadn't fully healed from his surgery back in 2012 because during the 2018-19 season, Dwight had to undergo spinal surgery for severe nerve irritation in an effort to relieve his pain in his glutes. This caused him to miss a total of 73 games during that season. And even after going through all this, after suffering through severe nerve damage which affected his back and legs, Dwight Howard, a man who relied heavily on his leaping ability and athleticism, was still able to put up solid numbers of 14.7 points, 11.5 rebounds, and 1.6 blocks. In my opinion, I believe that is something Dwight should definitely be credited more for, rather than being criticized a lot for. The fact that he was able to put up these type of numbers and still move the way he does, it's just amazing to me. I mean, if any other NBA player were to go through 2 major back surgeries like Dwight did, they definitely would have retired or been an extreme shell of their former self. Now with this out of the way, I'd like to remind people how good Dwight was in his prime with Orlando. And when we're talking about a prime Dwight Howard, we'll be looking specifically at his run from the 2007-8 season up until the 2011-12 season, his final year in Orlando. We'll be looking at his statistical feats, individual accomplishments, and playoff successes. But before we get into this, we need to talk about what made him so successful and so great, his physical attributes. During his time with the Magic, Dwight was a physical specimen. He stood at 6'11", weighed in at 265 to 280 pounds of pure muscle, but what set him apart was his 7'5" wingspan, his 9'2.5" standing reach, and his incredible 39.5" vertical. Combine these monstrous physical attributes and Dwight's defensive instincts and reflexes, and it's no wonder why he was such a feared rim protector for a good part of the late 2000s and early 2010s. Along with this, Dwight was very fast for the center position, and on numerous occasions on the offensive end, he was able to run past his defender on the fast break for an easy finish at the rim, or he was able to easily go around them in the post. And on the defensive end, he was great at recovering when beat. Now, moving on to the stats, in his prime, Dwight was on a whole nother level. Between the years of 2007 and 2012, Dwight was a force on both ends of the court, averaging 20.6 points, 13.9 rebounds, 1.5 assists, 1.1 steals, and 2.5 blocks. And to make these numbers even more impressive when looking at NBA history, only 6 other players have put up these type of numbers. And who are those other 6 players, you might ask? Well, it's Kareem, who did it 4 times, Shaq, who did it 3 times, Hakeem, who did it 4 times, Elvin Hayes did it once, Bob Lanier did it once, and Bob McAdoo did it once. The fact that Dwight was able to average these type of numbers between the ages of 22 through 26 years old is absolutely phenomenal. And to add on to this, Dwight led the league in rebounding 4 times and blocks twice as well. And looking into the advanced stats only further solidifies how dominant Dwight was. Between this 5-year time period, Dwight had an average defensive rating of 96 and led the league in that stat 3 times. He led the league in defensive win shares, a stat that estimates the number of wins a player's defense contributes, 4 times. He led the league in defensive box plus minus once and was consistently in the top 10 for block percentage. He consistently finished in the top 5 as well in player efficiency rating with an average PER of 24.5. Now, let's move on to individual accomplishments. During this 5-year run, Dwight was one of the most decorated superstars in the league, being named an All-Star 5 times, being named to the All-NBA First Team 5 times, was named to the All-Defensive Team for all 5 years, 4 of them being an All-NBA First Team. But his most impressive accomplishment, in my opinion, was when he won 3 straight Defensive Player of the Year awards between the years of 2009 and 2011. This is the only time this has been done in NBA history. In fact, only Ben Wallace and Dikembe Mutombo are the only players to win more Defensive Player of the Year awards than Dwight. And another accomplishment that I think gets overlooked when talking about Dwight's career is that he was consistently in the top 5 for MVP voting during this time period. He finished 5th in 2008, 4th in 2009, 4th in 2010, 2nd in 2011, and 7th in 2012 due to injury. And even though I believe that Derrick Rose did in fact deserve the MVP in 2011, given that the Bulls' injury circumstances and them winning 60 games, you can still make a very good argument that Dwight should have won the MVP, given that their scoring numbers were relatively close, and Dwight was a much better defender and rebounder. Overall, Dwight is an 8-time All-Star, 8-time All-NBA player, a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, and a 5-time member of the All-Defensive Team. A pretty impressive career resume. Finally, I'd like to look at Dwight's performances in the playoffs. In 4 playoff appearances with the Magic from the 2007-8 season to the 2011-12 season, Dwight was a straight-up monster, averaging 20.2 points, 14.3 rebounds, 1.4 assists, 0.8 steals, and 2.9 blocks. Some notable series include the 2008 playoffs against the Toronto Raptors, where Dwight averaged 22.6 points, 18.2 rebounds, and 3.8 blocks, the 2009 series against the Celtics, where he averaged 16.4 points, 17.1 rebounds, and 2.7 blocks, and knocked the defending champs out of the playoffs, the 2009 series against the Cavs, where he averaged 25.8 points and 13 rebounds to stop us from a Kobe and LeBron finals, and finally his 2011 series against Atlanta, where he was a one-man wrecking crew averaging 27 points and 15.5 rebounds. With Dwight at the head of the team, the Magic saw the most postseason success they've had in the 2000s, and to make things more impressive, Dwight basically led a team of sharpshooters and role players to this level of success. And look, before you guys get angry, I understand that this was the perfect team to surround Dwight. He was surrounded by shooters such as Rashard Lewis, JJ Redick, Michael Petrus, and Rafer Alston, and good pick and roll players who could shoot off the dribble such as Jameer Nelson and Hedo Turkoglu. But the thing is, without Dwight, none of them would have gotten the quality of shots that they got. In fact, the team wouldn't have even made the playoffs, because without Dwight, this team was absolutely horrible defensively. Dwight single-handedly led this team to a top 5 defensive rating over the course of this 5-year stretch, aside from the 2011-12 season when he got injured. Because of how dominant Dwight was down low and his gravity on the offensive end, the game came easier to these guys. Dwight forced opponents to double and even triple him down low, leading to easy shots for perimeter shooters. Dwight off the pick and roll was extremely hard to cover because firstly, Dwight was one of the best screen setters in the league, and secondly, it forced opponents to have to decide whether to leave an open 3 for the ball handler or cover Dwight down low. And because he was so efficient down there more times than not, the opponents would leave the ball handler open and just cover Dwight. Even if it didn't show up on the stat sheet, Dwight made so many opportunities for his teammates. So, we have a player who was undisputedly the best center in the league from the 2007-8 up until the 2011-12 season. An 8-time All-Star, a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, a 5-time All-Defensive Team member, a perennial MVP candidate in his prime, and arguably a top 3 player in the league in his prime. And you're telling me that he shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame? He shouldn't be a first ballot Hall of Famer? The man who led the Magic to the most playoff success they've had in years, single-handedly carried them defensively over a 5-year stretch, gave them a finals appearance while having to go through the defending champion Celtics and LeBron-led Cavs, all while being surrounded by role players and sharpshooters, shouldn't be a Hall of Famer? That's absolutely ridiculous, and it's time to put some respect on Dwight's name. Thank you very much for watching the video. Comment, like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications if you enjoyed. And with all that being said, have a good day, or night, and social distance wherever you are.